5 a.m., in the stillness before the city's heart began to beat again, Lee Seo-yeon's day started quietly. As always, her small apartment was filled only with the hum of an old refrigerator and the faint sounds of dawn from outside her window. Seo-yeon habitually rose from her bed and lightly kissed the forehead of her sleeping daughter, Ha-yoon. Her 6-year-old daughter's even breathing was the only color and warmth in her monotonous daily life. Kang Tae-oh gazed at her for a moment. His gaze was so intense that Seo-yeon involuntarily looked away. Her workplace was the Aura, a giant in the South Korean fashion industry. Behind its glamorous name and reputation lay an invisible battlefield. Seo-yeon was one of the most talented designers there, but also one of the most unnoticed. Her ideas were often presented under other people's names, and her efforts were taken for granted. The reason was simple: she was a single mom with no background or connections. About the last time, Kang Tae-oh continued with difficulty, I was rash. I didn't properly grasp the situation and misunderstood Ms. Lee Seo-yeon. I think I lost my rationality because it concerned my son. I sincerely apologize for deeply hurting you with my prejudice and arrogance. Her hands were busy preparing breakfast. Ha-yoon, rubbing her eyes with small hands, sat at the table and asked, Mom, is work hard again today? Seo-yeon was momentarily speechless at her daughter's innocent gaze. She forced a smile and stroked Ha-yoon's hair. No, my princess, Mom is fine. You just need to go to kindergarten bravely. Seo-yeon couldn't believe her ears. Kang Tae-oh, the emperor of the Korean fashion world, known to have an icy heart, was apologizing to her. It wasn't just formal words. His eyes clearly held regret and apology. But her heart was already heavy with a rock. It was because of the important season planning meeting scheduled for today. The design proposal she had stayed up all night preparing was in team leader Park Ji-min's hands. Team leader Park was one of the Aura's power players, someone who wouldn't hesitate to steal others' credit for her own success. To her and her followers, Seo-yeon was the perfect prey. Seo-yeon was so surprised she couldn't say anything. All she could do was stare blankly at him. Assistant Manager Lee, are you sure you did this? The idea is okay, but it's a bit tacky. I'll have to make some adjustments. This was what Team Leader Park had said, glancing through Seo-yeon's proposal just before closing time yesterday. Seo-yeon knew well that making adjustments meant turning it into her own idea, but she couldn't resist. The moment she resisted, her company life would become hell, and her only means of earning Ha-yoon's kindergarten tuition might be cut off. Will you accept my apology? Kang Tae-oh asked again. His voice held a hesitation uncharacteristic of him. Seo-yeon's steps were heavy as she entered the company in a gray suit, her face stern. The giant The Aura logo in the lobby seemed to mock her. She tried to compose herself while waiting for the elevator. It's okay, Lee Seo-yeon. Think of Ha-yoon. Just get through the day. Seo-yeon finally came to her senses. She slowly nodded. I gratefully accept your apology, CEO. Her office. Design Team 1 was already filled with palpable tension. Team Leader Park sat at her desk like a queen, surveying her surroundings. While her sycophants were busy flattering her from the morning, Seo-yeon quietly sat at her desk and turned on her computer. Her desk was in the corner of the office, closest to the copier. No one greeted her. It was as if she were invisible. Kang Tae-oh seemed to let out a sigh of relief. The air in the office softened slightly. He looked out the window for a moment, then turned his gaze back to Seo-yeon. Throughout the morning, a storm of chores poured down. Team Leader Park deliberately made Seo-yeon copy meeting materials, run coffee errands, and even organize her personal documents. Other team members pretended not to see, or sometimes just gave her scornful glances. Seo-yeon silently did everything. Showing emotion was a luxury. Actually, I didn't just call you today for an apology. His expression turned serious again. It's because of my son, Min-jun. Since that day, the child keeps talking about you. He feels guilty, thinking he caused you trouble. If it's all right with you, would you have dinner with me and Min-jun tonight? I think showing him directly that you're okay would be the best way to reassure him. She finally caught her breath at lunchtime. Colleagues went in groups of 2 or 3 to expensive restaurants, but Seo-yeon, as always, headed to the staff cafeteria. That's when it happened. It was such an unexpected proposal. Seo-yeon's mind went blank. Dinner with the CEO of this company, not just him, but with his son too. It was obvious what rumors would spread and what Team Leader Park would do. Excuse me. CEO, that's a bit. She unconsciously blurted out a refusal. A small, timid voice came from behind her. Turning around, she saw a small boy standing there. The child was wearing expensive clothes, but his face looked somehow lonely. Kang Min-jun. He was the only son of CEO Kang Tae-oh, the owner of the Aura, and known for his cold charisma. The child attended the company's VIP daycare center. I know it's a burden. Kang Tae-oh cut her off. This isn't an extension of work. It's an entirely personal request. As a father, a request for my son. Of course, if it's uncomfortable, you're welcome to decline. Seo-yeon unconsciously smiled gently. What is it? His words were polite, but they carried a weight that was difficult to refuse. What moved Seo-yeon's heart most was the phrase, a request as a father, and the image of Min-jun's face, who must be feeling guilty because of her. The lonely, small child's eyes flickered before her. Min-jun pointed to his shoelace with a small hand. It's untied. Seo-yeon sighed deeply. She decided to follow the voice in her heart. The boy's shoelace was tangled. Seo-yeon knelt before the child without hesitation. Give it here. Auntie will tie it nicely for you. When her hand touched him, Min-jun flinched for a moment but then stood still, looking down at her. Seo-yeon skillfully tied the shoelace into a bow. Understood. For your son, I will do it. There, all done. It won't come undone now. When she said this with a bright smile, a faint smile appeared on Min-jun's face for the first time. The child just nodded silently and then ran back in the direction of the daycare center. That evening, the car sent by Kang Tae-oh arrived at the designated location near Seo-yeon's apartment. Seo-yeon changed into the most inconspicuous, ordinary clothes possible and got into the car. The car headed to a high-end traditional Korean restaurant on Namsan, overlooking the entire Seoul cityscape. The restaurant operated on a strict reservation-only basis, not accepting regular customers. It was a very small encounter, but after that day, Seo-yeon and Min-jun's accidental meetings gradually became more frequent. When Seo-yeon was eating a sandwich late in the evening due to overtime, Min-jun, who was left alone in the daycare center waiting for his mom, watched her from a distance. Seo-yeon approached the child and offered him half of the sandwich she was about to eat. Min-jun hesitated, but then carefully took it and began to chew with his small mouth. As they entered the private room they were guided to, a small child ran out and hugged Seo-yeon tightly. Another day, Seo-yeon was on the company's rooftop garden taking a brief breath of fresh air. Min-jun was out for a walk with his daycare teacher. The child was looking at the flowers in the garden, but his gaze was constantly on Seo-yeon. When Seo-yeon waved, the child, startled, hid behind his teacher, but his small ears were bright red. Auntie, Seo-yeon felt a strange sense of kinship with the child. He was a child who seemed to have everything in a splendid environment, but his eyes always held a deep loneliness. It was like her own reflection, enduring alone in this huge company. CEO Kang Tae-oh was always busy, and rumors said the child's mother had passed away in an accident a few years ago. Seo-yeon did not approach the child with any sympathy or ulterior motive. She was simply concerned that the small child was alone, because she too was a mother. It was Min-jun. The child's face had grown noticeably thinner in a few days. Seo-yeon unconsciously hugged the child tightly. Min-jun, are you okay? Meanwhile, the date for the season planning meeting was drawing closer. Team leader Park had completely made Seo-yeon's submitted proposal her own. She made only a few detailed adjustments based on Seo-yeon's core ideas, then decorated the presentation materials as if she had created everything from scratch. And she assigned Seo-yeon the task of organizing all the trivial data for the presentation. It was a clear humiliation. Auntie, because of me. Were you scolded by Dad because of me? Tears welled up in the child's eyes. Assistant Manager Lee. The reference materials for tomorrow's presentation. Organize them perfectly and report them by today. You know what happens if there's even one typo, right? Team leader Park said, as if throwing a thick bundle of documents onto Seo-yeon's desk. It was long past closing time. Only she and Seo-yeon were left in the office. Seo-yeon gently patted the child's back. No, not at all. Auntie is perfectly fine. Look, we even came out to eat. Thanks to Min-jun, I get to come to such a wonderful place. Thank you. Seo-yeon silently nodded. Anger and powerlessness surged like waves in her heart, but she couldn't show it. All she could do was, once again, stay awake all night without seeing Ha-yoon sleeping. At Seo-yeon's warm words, Minjun finally seemed relieved and smiled brightly. A faint smile also touched Kang Taeho's face as he watched. The numbers on the computer screen danced before her eyes. Fatigue washed over her, but she couldn't stop. Then, her phone on the desk vibrated briefly. It was a message from Ha-yoon's kindergarten teacher. The meal was less awkward than expected. Minjun effectively acted as a lubricant, breaking the awkward silence between the two adults. The child sat close to Seo-yeon, chattering about what had happened at kindergarten. Seo-yeon listened to his stories with a gentle smile, placing side dishes on his plate as he clumsily used his chopsticks. Seo-yeon's mom, Ha-yoon, drew you during art class today. She called it my awesome mom in the world. Here's a picture. Kang Tae-ho silently watched the scene. He found no pretense or calculation in how Seo-yeon treated his son, only genuine warmth and kindness. When his wife was alive, Minjun had always been such a bright and talkative child. After his wife passed away, he had hardly ever seen his son like this. Along with the message, a photo was sent Ha-yoon's clumsy drawing of Seo-yeon designing. Seo-yeon in the drawing was smiling brightly. The moment she saw that smile, Seo-yeon's eyes welled up. Yes, I have Ha-yoon. I have my daughter who says I'm the coolest mom in the world. Just this is enough for me to endure. I must endure. I heard Ms. Lee Seo-yeon also has a child, Kang Tae-ho carefully began. She gathered her strength again and began to type on the keyboard. Outside the window, it was already pitch dark. The weight of being a mother and the weight of a designer's dream rested on her small shoulders. And in the midst of that heavy life, she did not yet know that the pure heart of a very small child would soon create a huge crack in her gray world. Whether that crack would be the beginning of a storm or a light of salvation, no one could predict. Seo-yeon was momentarily surprised, but then answered calmly, Yes, I have a beautiful daughter who takes after me. She's the same age as Minjun. The planning meeting room, which would determine the fate of the next season, was filled with a chilling atmosphere. Design team, marketing team, and several senior executives sat around a large wooden table. Seo-yeon sat in the most secluded corner of the meeting room, nervously clutching the documents she had stayed up all night organizing. Her heart beat uneasily, but her expression was as calm as a mask. Raising a child alone must not be easy. The undisputed star of the meeting was team leader Park Ji-min. Dressed immaculately in a high-end brand suit, she dominated the room with a confident smile. The presentation remote in her hand looked like a queen's scepter. Seo-yeon smiled faintly at his words. Isn't it the same for you, CEO? Then I will begin the presentation of the urban dream concept, which our design team 1 has ambitiously prepared for the next season. At that moment, their gazes met in the air. For the first time, they felt a sense of kinship. Beyond the vast wall separating CEO and ordinary employee, they were simply single parents, living with the same struggles. Team leader. Park's voice echoed through the meeting room. On the screen, the very design Seo-yeon had conceived overnight unfolded with dazzling graphics. A glimmer of hope blooming in the city's grayness. The coexistence of coldness and warmth. All the philosophy Seo-yeon had wanted to convey flowed eloquently from team leader Park's mouth. She added a few commercial elements to Seo-yeon's ideas, perfectly packaging them as if they were her own from the start. Your passion for design seems remarkable. Kang Tae-ho changed the subject. Even with the fabric issue, how did you think of finding that artisan? Seo-yeon bit her lip. It felt like seeing her own child wearing someone else's clothes and laughing with an unfamiliar voice. Anger flared, but she bowed her head, unable to say anything. The executives exclaimed in admiration, and colleagues looked at team leader Park with respect. No one knew who the true owner of those designs was. Seo-yeon's eyes sparkled. I believe design isn't just about creating beautiful clothes. It's about conveying the stories and philosophies contained within them to people. Within our disappearing traditional crafts lies a depth and beauty that no luxury brand can imitate. I simply wanted to show that to the world. The presentation ended successfully. Applause erupted. Team leader Park gracefully bowed, then cast a quick, satisfied glance at Seo-yeon. Her eyes held clear mockery and triumph. But her wickedness did not end there. When she spoke about her work, she seemed more vibrant and passionate than ever. Kang Tae-ho couldn't take his eyes off her. He had met countless designers, but never one with such pure passion and deep insight simultaneously. He couldn't help but ask himself what he had been seeing in her until now. Assistant manager Lee Seo-yeon of our team took care of the preliminary research for this concept. Team leader Park suddenly pointed to Seo-yeon. All eyes turned to Seo-yeon in the corner of the meeting room. Assistant manager Lee, could you briefly explain to the marketing director why Neo Mint was chosen as the trend color for this season? It's very basic. So you should know, right? In the car on the way back after dinner, Min-jun, asleep, breathed evenly. Leaning on Seo-yeon's shoulder, Kang Tae-oh quietly watched them through the rearview mirror. It was an unfamiliar scene, yet strangely comforting. It was a clear trap. Neo Mint was not in Seo-yeon's original proposal. It was a color team leader Park had added at the last minute, claiming it was to enhance her creativity. Seo-yeon had no way of knowing the reason. The air in the meeting room instantly turned cold. When Seo-yeon hesitated, unable to answer, team leader Park clicked her tongue as if she had been waiting. The car stopped near Seo-yeon's home. Seo-yeon carefully woke Min-jun and handed him to Kang Tae-oh. Oh, assistant manager Lee. How can you not even answer something so basic? It seems people should stick to what they're good at, like organizing documents or making copies. Thank you. For today, CEO and Min-jun, good night. It was blatant ridicule. A few team members could be heard snickering. The marketing director's face hardened, as Seo-yeon's face turned ashen. She had to stand up and say something, but no sound came out, as if a thorn was caught in her throat. As she was about to step out of the car, Kang Tae-oh called her name. Team leader Park didn't stop there and delivered the knockout blow. To be frank, assistant manager Lee's initial proposal was truly a sight to behold. It was a collection of tacky and disorganized ideas. I stayed up all night overhauling everything to make it this presentable. How can someone be so greedy without talent? Don't you agree, everyone? Miss Lee Seo-yeon, it was a complete lie and an insult to her character. Not only had she stolen Seo-yeon's ideas, but now she was painting her as an incompetent and greedy employee. Hot tears welled up in Seo-yeon's eyes. She clenched her fists. She felt her fingernails digging into her palms, but it was nothing compared to the wound in her heart. Yes, just then. Thank you for coming today for Min-jun. Meanwhile, a small commotion was happening at the company's VIP daycare center. The driver who was supposed to pick up Kang Min-jun was late due to a sudden traffic accident. CEO Kang Tae-oh couldn't answer his phone because of an important video conference with an overseas buyer. In the end, the daycare teacher had no choice but to take Min-jun and wait near CEO Kang's secretary's office. His voice was sincere. Seo-yeon gave a small nod and quickly disappeared into the darkness. When they arrived on the floor where the meeting room was located, Min-jun saw the scene inside the meeting room through the glass wall. Many adults sat with serious expressions, and among them was the shoelace auntie, Seo-yeon, who had shown him a warm smile for several days. But her expression was not good. Her head was bowed, and her shoulders trembled slightly. And some woman was yelling at her menacingly. Kang Tae-oh stood there for a long time, until her retreating figure was completely out of sight. The warmth of his sleeping son in his arms, and her subtle scent still lingering in the car, were creating small ripples in his frozen heart. It was a very small but clear signal of a beginning. The beginning of a relationship that was hesitant and uncertain, yet unavoidable. In Min-jun's small world, Seo-yeon was the only adult who had shown him kindness without expecting anything in return. His father was always busy, and his grandmother was strict, but Seo-yeon was different. Her smile was warm, and her touch was gentle, and now she was being scolded in front of many people, just like when he had done something wrong. The day after her dinner with Kang Tae-oh, team leader Park Ji-min's face in her office was contorted with rage, looking as if it would shatter. The rumors that reached her ears paralyzed what little reason she had left. How dare that insignificant Lee Seo-yeon have dinner with the CEO, and even bring his son along? Team leader Park gripped the fountain pen in her hand so tightly it felt like it would break. When team leader Park's sharp voice reached its peak, Min-jun could no longer bear it. Something hot boiled up in the child's small heart. While the teacher was momentarily distracted, Min-jun quickly turned his small body and ran towards the meeting room door. She felt a sense of crisis. This wasn't just a threat. This was a matter of her survival. Her standing within the company had already been severely shaken by the fabric incident. The executives had begun to look at her with suspicion, and even her loyal subordinates had subtly distanced themselves. In this situation, if Kang Tae-oh started to favor Lee Seo-yeon, It would only be a matter of time before she lost her position and was completely driven out of the company. Minjun! No! The teacher's frantic cry followed. But it was too late. This can't go on. Lee Seo-yeon. How dare you covet my position? How did I get this far? I can never fall. Bang! Park Ji-min realized that she could no longer defeat Lee Seo-yeon through skill or internal company politics. She needed a more powerful, more fatal weapon. A dirty and ugly scandal that would socially bury Lee Seo-yeon. So much so that even Kang Tae-oh couldn't protect her. The heavy meeting room door was roughly opened by the small child's strength. Everyone concentrating on the meeting was startled and looked towards the door. There stood Kang Min-jun, panting. She picked up the receiver and made a call. It was to a notorious private investigation agency she had secretly dealt with for years. One that would dig up any information for money. Team leader Park, with a look of disbelief, shouted, "Oh my, what child is this? How dare you just walk in here? What is security doing?" "This is team leader Park Ji-min. I need to look into someone." Lee Seo-yeon, assistant manager of the Aura design team 1. Dig through her past thoroughly, especially her deceased husband. Search around him intensely. I don't care if it's just a speck of dust. Find anything that can tarnish her. I'll pay whatever it costs. But Minjun didn't even glance at her. The child only looked at one person, Seo-yeon, who stood with a face about to burst into tears. Minjun took big steps into the meeting room. And then, without hesitation, he ran to Seo-yeon and tightly hugged her leg. After hanging up, Park Ji-min's eyes gleamed like a viper's. "Yes, Lee Seo-yeon. No matter how clean you pretend to be, your past can't be clean too." Everyone in the meeting room held their breath. Seo-yeon, too, was so startled that her body froze. She couldn't understand who this small child hugging her was, or what was happening. A few days later, a call came from the private investigation agency. The materials they sent were enough to drive Park Ji-min into a frenzy. Minjun lifted his head from Seo-yeon and stared directly at team leader Park, who still stood with a shocked expression. And the child, with all his might, shouted in a resounding voice, "Lee Seo-yeon's deceased husband, Kim Jin-woo." He was a promising young entrepreneur who ran a small IT startup. But just before he died, the company was suffering from severe financial difficulties, and he had even taken out a large loan from private lenders. And after his sudden death from a heart attack, Lee Seo-yeon received a substantial life insurance payout. The police closed the case as a simple natural death, but the timing was too perfect. "Don't bully my mom. This is it." Silence. Park Ji-min slapped her knee. Of course, this alone wasn't enough, but depending on how she twisted it, it would be easy to portray Lee Seo-yeon as a wicked woman who neglected her husband's death and collected insurance money. Time in the meeting room froze. The single phrase, "my mom," fell like a huge bomb, striking everyone's minds. Team leader. Park's mouth hung open, and the other executives and team members stared wide-eyed, looking back and forth between Seo-yeon and Minjun. That insignificant single mom, assistant manager Lee Seo-yeon, dared to be called mom by CEO Kang Tae-oh's son. However, she soon realized her limitations. If she, a mere team leader, were to break such a scandal, it would be nothing for Kang Tae-oh to suppress it if he put his mind to it. She needed greater power, an internal ally who could challenge Kang Tae-oh. Seo-yeon was more shocked than ever. "Child, what are you saying?" She barely managed to open her trembling lips, but Minjun just hugged her leg even tighter. The face of one person came to her mind. It was Executive Director Kim Sung-chol of the Aura. Just at that moment, the meeting room door slowly opened again. Executive Director Kim Sung-chol was one of the founding contributors, but he had constantly been at odds with Kang Tae-oh since Kang Tae-oh inherited management rights. He was always looking for an opportunity to push Kang Tae-oh out and take over the company. Especially recently, the conflict between the two had reached its peak when Kang Tae-oh put a stop to an unreasonable overseas project that Executive Director Kim was pushing. Executive Director Kim was desperate to find Kang Tae-oh's weakness. A chilling aura enveloped the entire meeting room. Everyone's gaze turned to the door at once. There stood the absolute monarch of this company, CEO Kang Tae-oh, who had just finished his meeting with overseas buyers and came to find his son. Park Ji-min didn't hesitate. She contacted Executive Director Kim's secretary and requested a meeting. And that evening, the two met secretly in a high-end room salon in Gangnam. His gaze was fixed on a single spot, on the unbelievable sight of his son, calling an unfamiliar female employee mom while clinging to her leg, and confronting another employee. "So, what's the reason Team Leader Park wanted to see me?" All emotion vanished from Kang Tae-oh's face. His eyes froze colder than a Siberian winter. That murderous gaze went directly to the woman at the center of all this chaos. Lee Seo-yeon. As if she were some bewitching creature who had enticed his son, Executive Director Kim asked, insolently sipping his drink. His eyes seemed to pierce through Park Ji-min's true intentions. The meeting room was now in a complete vacuum, where not even a breath could be heard. The calm before the storm, it was a cruel and eerie silence, heralding the prelude to a great tragedy. Park Ji-min placed the materials she had brought onto the table. "Executive Director, do you know an employee named Lee Seo-yeon?" Kang Tae-oh's appearance shattered the frozen air of the meeting room. His mere presence seemed to drop the surrounding temperature by several degrees. People forgot how to breathe, waiting for his next move. His gaze was like a blade, and its tip aimed directly at Seo-yeon's heart. Lee Seo-yeon. That single mom the CEO has been fawning over lately. Executive Director Kim scoffed. Seo-yeon felt the blood in her body turn icy cold. CEO Kang Tae-oh. A figure as high as the heavens whom she had only ever passed in the hallway for years since joining the company, never once having exchanged words with him. He was looking at her now, with eyes mixed with contempt, anger, and cold suspicion. That's right. But her past isn't so clean. Park Ji-min exaggeratedly embellished the story of Lee Seo-yeon's husband and the insurance money. The CEO is currently being swayed by such a woman, entrusting her with important company projects. What if the company's image takes a huge hit because of this? The first to regain her composure was team leader Park Ji-min. She judged this situation to be a golden opportunity to turn things to her advantage. With an exaggerated expression of surprise, she approached CEO Kong. Executive Director Kim stroked his chin, looking intrigued. So, what do you want, Team Leader Park? You didn't just call me to get rid of a mere assistant manager, did you? CEO. I don't know what's going on. Assistant Manager Lee Seo-yeon suddenly. It seems Assistant Manager Lee, finding company life difficult, might have harbored strange thoughts and deliberately approached your son. This isn't just about Lee Seo-yeon personally. Executive Director? Park Ji-min's voice lowered. This is a golden opportunity to attack CEO Kang Tae-oh's judgment. A scandal that the CEO of the Aura is privately running the company, protecting such an immoral woman. What will the directors and shareholders think if they find out? Team Leader Park's voice cunningly mixed sympathy and accusation, instantly transforming Seo-yeon into a dangerous person with an unstable mind, trying to exploit the CEO's son. Several team members nodded in agreement, as if they had been waiting for this. Executive Director Kim's eyes flashed. Park Ji-min's words hit exactly where it hurt him. If they could just tarnish Kang Tae-oh's perfect image, they would have a justification to bring him down. Kang Tae-oh didn't even spare a glance at Team Leader Park. He strode towards Seo-yeon and Min-jun. The sound of his dress shoes echoed as loudly as Seo-yeon's heartbeat. He stopped right in front of Seo-yeon. Seo-yeon involuntarily held her breath. Go on. Min-jun, I know a reporter who is obsessed with such gossip. Park Ji-min revealed her plan. We'll sensationalize Lee Seo-yeon's past and make it into an article. The two faces of a single mom designer, the mysterious death of her husband and large insurance payout, and her seduction of a Chaebol heir CEO. Doesn't the title alone pique your interest? Kang Tae-oh's voice was low and cold, but a subtle tremor was mixed in when he called his son. Come here, to Dad. She even added the fact that Lee Seo-yeon and Kang Tae-oh had dinner together. The CEO personally meeting that woman is proof that their relationship is no ordinary one. We must use this fact to create an image of CEO Kang Tae-oh as an incompetent manager who cannot distinguish between public and private matters. But Min-jun shook his head and hugged Seo-yeon's leg even tighter. No, Dad. That auntie scolded this auntie. She bullied my mom. The child's cry shocked everyone in the meeting room once again. A satisfied smile touched Executive Director Kim's lips. Good. Very satisfactory. Team Leader Park, make sure the job is done right. If this succeeds, I will guarantee your position. Team Leader Park. No, I promise even more. Kang Tae-oh's brow furrowed deeply. He no longer pressed his son, but bent down, forcibly detached Min-jun, and embraced him. The child struggled and burst into tears. No, I want to go to Mom! Mom! The two's sordid deal was struck. They toasted, confirming each other's desires. In the dark room, a grand and elaborate conspiracy against Lee Seo-yeon and Kang Tae-oh was slowly revealing itself. The word mom pierced Kang Tae-oh's heart like a dagger. He stood up, holding his son in his arms. Then he looked down at Seo-yeon. His eyes now held no emotion whatsoever. That empty, abyssal gaze made Seo-yeon even more terrified. A few days later, Seo-yeon was spending the weekend with Ha-yoon. It was a rare day off. She had been feeling subtle changes around her since the dinner with Kang Tae-oh. Kang Tae-oh had officially recognized her contributions, entrusting her with full authority over the Urban Dream project. Team leader Park couldn't openly torment her, but the murderous intent emanating from behind her back had grown even stronger. The meeting ends here, he said concisely to the executives. And team leader Park, submit a detailed report to Secretary Kim about today's meeting and this commotion. Ms. Lee Seo-yeon, please follow me to my office. Seo-yeon tried to ignore these things and enjoyed her time with her daughter at the park. Listening to Ha-yoon's laughter, all her worries about the company seemed to disappear, if only for a moment. His last words sounded like a death sentence. Seo-yeon's legs trembled. As Kang Tae-oh left the meeting room, she saw her colleagues' whispers and team leader Park's triumphant smile behind his back. She thought it was over for her. But she didn't know. At that very moment, a scandal that would shake all of South Korea was on the verge of breaking out. The seeds of poison sown by Park Ji-min and Kim Sung-cheol were just about to pierce the ground and sprout. Over the peaceful weekend park, the shadow of a great storm was silently falling. Kang Tae-oh's office was as cold and immense as his personality. Standing before the glass window overlooking the city skyline, he instructed his secretary to take the child away instead of comforting his son, even though he knew Seo-yeon had entered. After Min-jun was led away crying, only a heavy silence remained in the office. Monday morning, the lingering peace of the weekend shattered. The storm arrived without warning. Kang Tae-oh did not say a word to Seo-yeon, but sat at his desk and began reviewing documents. As if she didn't exist in that space, it was a more terrifying pressure than any reprimand. Every second felt like hell. Seo-yeon could only stand there, head bowed like a criminal. As Seo-yeon dropped Ha-yoon off at kindergarten and headed to work, her smartphone began to ring frantically. At first, she thought it was just a simple work call, but then a portal site headline that popped up on her screen caught her eye. Perhaps 10 minutes passed. Kang Tae-oh finally spoke. Exclusive, the Aura Group's ugly scandal. Chaebol Air. CEO's secret rendezvous with gold digger. Designer who devoured her husband. What's your motive? Her heart felt like it plummeted to the floor. Seo-yeon clicked the article with trembling hands. The content was more vicious and cruel than she could have imagined. The article cleverly mixed facts and lies, portraying her as a shameless villain. It connected her deceased husband's business failure and private debts, his sudden death, and the insurance money she received, subtly implying that she had planned or at least neglected her husband's death. His voice was icy. Seo-yeon looked up. Excuse me. The article didn't stop there. It wrote that after joining the Aura, she had used her unfortunate single mom status as a weapon to intentionally approach CEO Kang Tae-oh, who had a young son. The incident in the meeting room where Min-jun called her mom was depicted as her planned act, and the recent dinner with Kang Tae-oh was twisted into evidence of an illicit rendezvous proving their inappropriate relationship. Citing an anonymous internal source, it further added that Kang Tae-oh, infatuated with her, was entrusting her with important company projects and failing to distinguish between public and private matters, leading to the company's downfall. I asked what your purpose was in approaching my son, Kang Tae-oh said, without looking up from his documents. Money or did you covet a higher position in this company? Did you think you could gain something by using my son, with your single mom, pity as a weapon? Seo-yeon couldn't breathe. It felt as if all the blood in her body was rushing backward. This wasn't just a gossip article. This was a clear act of murder, aimed at destroying her life entirely. Thousands of malicious comments were already appended below the article. The words were insulting. The color drained from Seo-yeon's face. No, I would never! I knew her face looked like a cunning fox. She probably killed her husband and used the insurance money to flaunt luxury brands. Gives me chills. That kind of woman is a designer. Let's start a boycott of the aura immediately, using even a child to seduce a man. She's truly scum. Then what is it? Kang Tae-oh looked up for the first time and stared directly at her. My son, Kang Min-jun, called you mom, a woman he met for the first time today. Do you think this is a coincidence? Tell me everything you did to my son, without missing a single detail. Seo-yeon leaned her forehead against the bus window and closed her eyes. It felt like the world was collapsing. She could endure the criticism directed at her, but she couldn't tolerate the defamation of her husband's death. And most of all, her heart was torn to pieces by the fact that this dirty scandal had dragged in innocent Ha-yoon and Min-jun. His gaze was sharp enough to pierce through everything she was. Seo-yeon's throat constricted with injustice, but she instinctively knew that telling the truth in this situation wouldn't make him believe her. He had already judged her as a shameless woman trying to cash in by using his son. When she arrived at the company, the atmosphere was like a battlefield. The lobby was swarming with reporters who had flocked after seeing the article. Seo-yeon barely managed to get into the elevator with the help of security guards. As she entered the office, all the employees stared at her as if they had seen a ghost. Pity, contempt, curiosity, and mockery mixed in their gazes, piercing her like daggers. I didn't do anything to your son. I just tied his shoelaces a few times and shared a sandwich with him. Team leader Park Jimin approached her as if she'd been waiting. A hypocritical smile of concern was on her face. Oh my! Assistant Manager Lee. What is all this? Did you see the article? It's really so shocking, I'm speechless. It's not true, is it? I believe Assistant Manager Lee wouldn't do such a thing. And for just that, my son calls you mom. Kang Tae-oh scoffed. You're very good at fabricating stories. You should have been a novelist, not a designer. Her voice was as sweet as honey, but her eyes gleamed with the triumph of a victor. Seo-yeon didn't even have the energy to respond. Further conversation was pointless. Seo-yeon fell silent, as if interpreting her silence as affirmation. Kang Tae-oh pressed the intercom and called Secretary Kim. At that moment, the door to Kang Tae-oh's office burst open, and an infuriated executive director, Kim Sung-seol, stormed out. He shouted loud enough to make the office tremble. Secretary Kim, from now on, investigate everything about Ms. Lee Seo-yeon, from her birth to the present, family relationships, financial status, past activities, and reputation among acquaintances. Dig up every speck of dust. And for what happened in the meeting room today, secure statements from everyone involved and check all CCTV footage. Have the report on my desk by tomorrow morning. CEO Kang Tae-oh. What is this mess? The company's stock price is plummeting since this morning. The entire company is on the verge of ruin because of one immoral employee. Fire Assistant Manager Lee Seo-yeon immediately and issue a public apology. Otherwise, I will call an emergency board meeting to question your management responsibility. His command was ruthless and swift. Secretary Kim bowed with a stern expression and then glanced at Seo-yeon. Her eyes held a mixture of sympathy and slight wariness. Executive Director Kim's shout, like fire poured on oil, further escalated the chaos in the office. Employees whispered in fear. You may leave. Kang Tae-oh followed Executive Director Kim out of his office. His face was as cold as ice, but his eyes were calm like the eye of a storm. He didn't even flinch at Executive Director Kim's frantic shouting. His gaze was fixed on only one place, Seo-yeon, who stood pale. At Kang Tae-oh's final words, Seo-yeon mechanically turned and left the office. The moment the door closed, she leaned against the wall, barely able to stand. Their eyes met in the air. Seo-yeon's eyes held despair and resignation, and a very small trace of resentment. Because of you. Because I got involved with you. My life is ruined like this. Her eyes seemed to say, that afternoon, Lee Seo-yeon became the company's main gossip. People openly whispered whenever she passed. That woman, she seduced the CEO's son. Oh my, she looks so demure, but she's something else. They say she's a single mom, but she must have a natural talent for charming men. Kang Tae-oh's heart sank heavily. He instinctively knew that all of this was a cowardly attack aimed at him, and Seo-yeon was the most cruel victim of that attack. The moment he tried to approach her, his phone rang in his pocket. It was home. Team leader Park and her group deliberately laughed and insulted her more loudly. Assistant Manager Lee, it seems you're on your way to a status upgrade. Aren't you? People like us won't even be in your sights now. Young master. A terrible thing has happened, madam. Madam has taken Min Jun young master somewhere after seeing the newspaper article. She said she had to meet that woman, Lee Seo-yeon, and confront her. Seo-yeon said nothing in response. She returned to her desk and stared blankly at the computer screen. Everything felt like a nightmare. She only wanted to work diligently and quietly raise Ha-yoon. Why wouldn't the world leave her alone? Kang Tae-oh's face turned ashen. His mother, Chairman Kang, was a stern and conservative woman. It was obvious how she would react to the scandal. And if she met Seo-yeon, something terrible was bound to happen. Just imagining it. It was quitting time, but no one told her to leave. She remained alone in the emptying office, like a prisoner exiled. Just then, someone quietly placed a warm cup of coffee on her desk. It was an assistant manager from another department. He was one of the few who had noticed Seo-yeon's talent. It was one disaster after another. From outside, the media and shareholders, from inside. Executive Director Kim, and now even his family were pressuring him. Everything was screaming at him to abandon Lee Seo-yeon. Sacrificing her for the sake of the company and his family was the most rational and logical decision. Assistant Manager Lee, hang in there. I believe you're not that kind of person. He left with just those words. Kang Tae-oh clenched his fist. A fierce battle raged within him. The cold rationality of a shrewd CEO, the budding trust and responsibility he felt for one woman, and the heart of a father with a son tangled together, throwing him into confusion. At that small warmth, Seo-yeon finally burst into the tears she'd been holding back. She buried her face on her desk and cried silently. He looked at Seo-yeon again. She looked fragile, as if she would break at any moment. But even in that precarious state, she was desperately holding on like a lioness protecting her cub. At that moment, Kang Tae-oh recalled her sparkling eyes when she spoke about her design philosophy during dinner a few nights ago, and he remembered the warm embrace of his son Min Jun, who had fallen asleep leaning on him. At the same time, Kang Tae-oh was in his home study, looking at a few pages of an interim report from Secretary Kim, Lee Seo-yeon's personnel record. A clean record, not flashy, but impeccable. And his eyebrows moved slightly at the fact that she had a 6-year-old daughter. If he abandoned her here, he would live with regret for the rest of his life. He might succeed as a manager, but as a human being, and as a father, he would be a complete failure. He looked out at the dark city. His mind was complex. On one hand, anger at Lee Seo-yeon's calculated approach flared, but on the other, his son's desperate cry echoed in his ears. "Don't bully my mom." It was the first time Min Jun had expressed such emotion since his wife's death. He made up his mind. His rationality told him that all of this was a scheme by that woman. But in a corner of his heart, a tiny doubt began to sprout. Could it be that there was something he was missing? Could there be a truth hidden behind his son's tears that he didn't know? Kang Tae-oh's eyes shone coldly. He no longer hesitated. He returned to his desk and picked up the intercom. A shadow of anguish deepened on Kang Tae-oh's cold face. The cool reason of a sharp CEO and the emotions of a father with a hurt son began to intensely clash within him. And at the end of that clash, he did not yet know what choice he would make. Secretary Kim, immediately notify an emergency board meeting for tomorrow at 10 a.m. The agenda is investigation of the truth behind the company image damage incident and accountability of those responsible, and instruct the legal team to prepare all legal actions regarding this false information dissemination article. Finally, the next morning, a thick report, prepared overnight under Kang Tae-oh's instructions, lay on his desk. Secretary Kim's competence had, in a single night, laid bare a person's life and the full story of yesterday's incident before him. Kang Tae-oh turned the first page of the report with a cold expression. He paused for a moment and spoke in a firm, powerful voice so that everyone in the office could hear. The first part was the Assistant Manager Lee Seo-yeon Personal Background Report. Contrary to his expectations, it contained no sordid scandals or suspicious activities. Quite the opposite. A brilliant career, graduating at the top of a prestigious art university and winning several design competitions. After graduation, she was a promising designer, but chose the life of an ordinary housewife after marriage. Then, 3 years ago, her husband passed away in an unexpected accident, and she re-entered society to raise her young daughter. Her performance reviews since joining the Aura were always top tier, but her promotions were consistently overlooked. The last page of the report included a photo of her old apartment and the name of the ordinary neighborhood kindergarten her daughter, Ha Yoon, attended. Assistant Manager Lee Seo-yeon is to report to work as usual starting tomorrow until the board meeting concludes. She is an employee of the Aura and the overall project manager for Urban Dream. That fact remains unchanged. Kang Tae-oh closed his eyes for a moment. There, laid out, was the arduous life of a woman simply enduring day by day. Far from the image of the ambitious gold digger he had imagined, silence fell in the office. Kang Tae-oh's declaration was contrary to everyone's expectations. Especially Executive Director Kim and Team Leader Park's faces were contorted in shock. Far from firing Lee Seo-yeon, he was publicly demonstrating his intention to protect her. The second part was the Design Team 1 Season Planning Meeting Incident Report. Most team members, including Team Leader Park Ji-min, testified that Seo-yeon had always been disgruntled and likely approached the CEO's son intentionally. In her own statement, Team Leader Park eloquently described how she had salvaged Seo-yeon's design. Kang Tae-oh put down the receiver and picked up his smartphone. He scrolled through the numerous missed calls and found only one number. It was Seo-yeon's number. She was probably in a state of panic right now. However, the report also included other content. Testimonies from several employees who wished to remain anonymous. They stated that Team Leader Park had been stealing Seo-yeon's ideas for a long time and had not hesitated to make derogatory remarks. Furthermore, the results of a design analysis commissioned to an external expert were attached, stating that the original core ideas of the urban dream concept all originated from Seo-yeon's initial proposal, and Team Leader Park's modifications only served to enhance the commercial aspects. Through the phone, he heard her trembling breath. Kang Tae-oh's expression hardened. He was disgusted by the fact that such a sordid affair had been happening within his company. But what utterly shook him was the final part. Ms. Lee Seo-yeon, Assistant Manager Lee Seo-yeon and Kang Min-jun relationship report. CCTV footage analysis. Kang Tae-oh's voice was low and calm, but it held a rock-solid firmness. Secretary Kim had analyzed all CCTV footage from the past month within the company, organizing every moment Seo-yeon and Min-jun had encountered each other by time. The first footage was in front of the staff cafeteria. Min-jun showed his untied shoelace, and Seo-yeon, without hesitation, knelt down and gently tied it. The second footage was in the empty office hallway late in the evening. Seo-yeon approached Min-jun, who was alone, and offered him half of her sandwich. The child carefully accepted and ate it. The third footage was in the rooftop garden. Seo-yeon, discovering Min-jun watching her from afar, smiled brightly and waved, causing the child to shyly hide. Listen to me carefully now. Don't worry about anything. Don't think about anything. You are not alone. Tomorrow at 10 a.m., you will attend the board meeting with me. We will prove your truth together. So, trust me. In the videos, Seo-yeon never once spoke to Min-jun first or deliberately approached him. All her actions were filled with pure kindness and warmth, without any calculation. Kang Tae-oh saw a faint smile appear on his son's face on the screen. It was an expression he had never seen since his wife passed away. His last words sounded like both a command and an earnest plea. Hot tears streamed from Seo-yeon's eyes, who had been lost in a swamp of despair. They weren't tears of injustice or sorrow. They were tears of relief, having finally found a glimmer of light in the pitch-black darkness. At the end of the report were the statements from the VIP daycare teachers. Min-jun was usually quiet and liked to play alone, but recently, he occasionally mentioned Design Team Auntie. She tied his shoelaces beautifully. Her sandwich was delicious. Her smile was pretty. It was the first time Min-jun had shown such interest in anyone. The next day at 10 a.m., the board meeting room on the top floor of the Aura Group's headquarters was filled with icy tension. The faces of the directors seated around the large mahogany table bore different expressions. Executive Director Kim Sung-cheol and his faction wore arrogant smiles, confident of victory, while other directors awaited the start of the meeting with a mix of anxiety and curiosity. Thump! The meeting room door opened, and Kang Tae-oh entered first. His face was as cold and resolute as yesterday. But what surprised the directors even more was the person who followed him in. Lee Seo-yeon, composed but unyielding. The woman at the center of the scandal, instead of bowing her head like a criminal, appeared before the directors with dignity. Kang Tae-oh's heart sank heavily. All the pieces were fitting together. The truth he had missed, the reality he had tried to ignore, swept over him like a huge wave. A murmur instantly ran through the meeting room. Executive Director Kim Sung-chul let out a disbelieving scoff. He realized how foolish he had been. He had thoroughly ignored his son's signals of loneliness. Under the excuse of being busy with work, he hadn't realized how big a hole had been torn in his son's heart. That empty space was filled not by himself, his father, but by the small kindness of a woman he met by chance, and he, in turn, had accused and humiliated her as a shameless woman trying to use his son. CEO Kong, are you out of your mind? How dare you bring an employee who caused such a sordid scandal into the sacred board meeting? Along with deep self-reproach, a chilling anger towards team leader. Park Ji-min surged. She had not merely stolen an employee's credit, she had trampled on a person's character, and as a result, had hurt his son. Kang Tae-oh casually ignored Executive Director Kim's words and sat in his seat. He offered Seo-yeon the seat right next to him. That single action clearly demonstrated his resolve to protect Seo-yeon until the very end in this situation. That night, Kang Tae-oh quietly opened Min-jun's door. The child was curled up in bed, hugging an old teddy bear. It was a bear his wife had given him when she was alive. I am Kang Tae-oh, who convened this emergency board meeting. Kang Tae-oh announced the start of the meeting. Today's agenda, as you all know, is the investigation of the truth behind the company image damage incident due to the press scandal and the accountability of those responsible. So, let's first hear from Executive Director Kim Sung-chul, who claims to have provided the impetus for the situation. Min-jun, Executive Director Kim stood up as if he had been waiting. He distributed the prepared materials to the directors and began to speak passionately. Kang Tae-oh carefully sat beside the bed. Min-jun buried his face deeper behind the bear without answering. Esteemed directors, currently, the Aura is facing its greatest crisis since its founding. All of this is due to CEO Kang Tae-oh's arbitrary and immoral management. Son, shall we talk? Dad and you. He recited the content of the malicious article, slandering Lee Seo-yeon as a shameless woman who used her husband's death to collect insurance money and then seduce the CEO. He claimed that Kang Tae-oh, infatuated with such a woman, was entrusting her with important company projects and even having personal meetings, thus dragging the company's reputation through the mud. Silence hung heavy for a long time. Kang Tae-oh waited anxiously. Finally, the child's small voice emerged from under the covers. All the evidence is overflowing I demand here today, for the sake of the company and its shareholders. The immediate dismissal of Ms. Lee Seo-yeon and the resignation of CEO Kang Tae-oh for his management responsibility in causing this situation. Auntie, isn't she coming to work? Executive Director Kim's inflammatory speech swayed the directors who supported him, and they nodded in agreement. The atmosphere in the meeting room quickly turned against Kang Tae-oh and Seo-yeon. Kang Tae-oh's heart plummeted. How did you know? All eyes turned to Seo-yeon. She swallowed hard. Kang Tae-oh gently squeezed her hand and whispered, I told you to trust me. With that small warmth, Seo-yeon found courage. Today, I didn't see her at the daycare, or on the rooftop, or in the cafeteria. The child's voice trembled slightly. Was she scolded? Because of me? To the directors, thank you for giving me the opportunity to state my position. Kang Tae-oh was speechless. It was too much guilt for a 6-year-old to bear. He wrapped his arm around his son's small shoulder. Seo-yeon stood up and began to speak in a calm and clear voice. She was no longer the helpless victim who had been humiliated by team leader Park. She was a strong warrior fighting to protect her honor and her daughter's future. No, it's not because of Min-jun. That's Dad's fault. I will start by addressing the story about my husband's death and the insurance money mentioned in the article. Yes, it is all true. My husband suffered from a heart condition due to overwork and trying too hard to save his company. He eventually passed away, and I received the life insurance payout he left behind. He took a deep breath and asked the question he most wanted to ask. Min-jun, yesterday in the meeting room, why did you call that auntie mom? Can you tell Dad honestly? A murmur ran through the meeting room. A sneer touched Executive Director Kim's lips. As soon as he finished speaking, Min-jun's shoulders began to heave. The child burst into tears. His small body trembled as if convulsing. However, Seo-yeon's voice became firm. There is a truth the article did not mention. Dad is always busy, and Grandma is scary. No one, No one plays with me? She displayed documents on the screen. They were her husband's hospital diagnosis and medical records. A statement showing how she used the insurance money to settle all of her husband's company debts and private loans, and the lease agreement for a small apartment where she and her daughter would live with the remaining money. Minjun wailed, pouring out his heart incoherently. I did not use that money to buy luxury goods or to seduce the CEO. I used that money to put to rest the final chapter of a man who had dedicated everything to his dreams, and to protect my daughter who was left behind. This is the truth of my life that I had to protect, even if it meant being branded as a gold digger. But, Auntie smiled at me. She tied my shoelaces and the sandwich. I thought of Mom. Dad used to say, Mom used to smile beautifully like that too. Her voice, devoid of tears, carried the strong power that only someone who had steadfastly lived their life could possess. The eyes of some directors began to waver. His son's last words were like an arrow piercing Kang Taeo's heart. He couldn't breathe. That's what it was. My son was simply longing for his mother's warmth. He had superimposed the shadow of his beloved mother onto the face of an unfamiliar woman. Next, I will address the suspicion that I intentionally approached CEO Kang. I never once approached that child first. All I did was tie the shoelace of a lonely child and share a sandwich with a hungry child. Do you think that was a calculated act for money or power? Is there anyone here who has never offered such a small kindness? Kang Taeo could no longer say anything. He just hugged his crying son tightly. I'm sorry. Son, I'm truly sorry. It was all Dad's fault. His eyes welled up. He hadn't cried once since his wife passed away. But now, he silently shed tears, patting his son's back, tears of bitter regret, deeply feeling his failure as a father. The meeting room fell silent at Seo Yeon's sincere appeal. A long while later, after his son, exhausted from crying, had fallen asleep, Kang Taeo quietly left the room. He returned to his study and picked up the report on his desk. Now, his eyes no longer held the anguish or confusion of yesterday. Only a cold, firm resolve remained. That is all I have to say. I asked the directors to make their judgment. He had to set everything right, restore the trampled honor of a woman, and judge the vile perpetrator, and above all, he had to protect the person who had brought a warm smile back to his son's face. As Seo Yeon sat down, it was Kang Taeo's turn to stand up. A thick file was in his hand. Kang Taeo's gaze lingered on a corner of the report, on team leader Park Ji-min's name. An icy, cold smile touched his lips. Now, it was time for the hunt. From now on, I will tell you about the truth I have uncovered. A few days passed since the meeting room incident. Lee Seo-yeon still came to work. She had endlessly debated whether to submit her resignation, but she couldn't bring herself to do so when she thought of Ha-yoon's face. She endured each day like a death row inmate, awaiting her termination notice. The office atmosphere was like walking on thin ice. People treated her as if she didn't exist, and team leader Park Ji-min, consumed by triumph, tormented her at every opportunity. His voice was cold enough to freeze the entire meeting room. The strange thing was that there was no movement from CEO Kang Taeo's side. He neither fired Seo Yeon nor stopped team leader Park. This calm before the storm made team leader Park even more anxious, yet also arrogant. She arbitrarily concluded that CEO Kang was resentful of Seo Yeon, but couldn't move rashly because of his son. Therefore, this was her chance to completely suffocate Seo Yeon. This entire scandal, from beginning to end, is a meticulously planned conspiracy to plunge the aura into crisis and remove me. Assistant Manager Lee. The first piece of evidence appeared on the screen. These were documents proving how team leader Park Ji-min had cunningly stolen Seo Yeon's design ideas for years. Seo Yeon's initial sketches and team leader Park's final results were compared side by side, with an expert's analysis opinion attached. One afternoon, team leader Park called Seo Yeon. She casually tossed a document onto Seo Yeon's desk. Team leader Park Ji-min has for a long time exploited Ms. Lee Seo Yeon's talent and consistently bullied her in the workplace. This is the beginning of all these incidents. This is the fabric for the main dress of the Urban Dream collection. It's a special silk produced only at the Silvano workshop in Italy. Assistant Manager Lee, you are responsible for the import process. Samples must arrive within a week, and the final order must be completed within 2 weeks. This is a very important task, so handle it without any mistakes. The second piece of evidence was the truth about the Silvano fabric incident. Kang Taeo's secretarial team had not only captured call records between team leader Park and the head of the Silvano workshop, but also traced the flow of illicit money between their accounts. It was clear evidence that team leader Park had deliberately obstructed an important company project. It was a mission that was clearly close to impossible. The Silvano workshop was famous for its craftsmanship, so orders were backed up, and the meticulous production process usually took at least a month. Receiving samples within a week was absurd. Team leader Park, who had been seated in a corner of the meeting room, turned pale and bowed her head as her criminal acts were exposed. Seo-yeon immediately saw through team leader Park's intention. This was a clear trap. The scheme was to make her fail this project and pin all the responsibility on her. In the past, she might have despaired and passively suffered. But after experiencing hell for days, Seo-yeon was no longer her old self. A cold spark flashed in her eyes. And finally, the last decisive blow was struck. Understood, team leader. And behind this entire conspiracy is Executive Director Kim Sung-cheol, who is present here today. Seo-yeon accepted the directive without a word. Team leader. Park snorted at her docile attitude and returned to her desk. She then immediately contacted the head of the Silvano workshop personally. Team leader Park used her years of connections and a little back money to ask them to delay the request from an employee named Lee Seo-yeon from The Aura as much as possible. All preparations were complete. Now, all that remained was to watch Seo-yeon fall. As soon as Kang Taeo finished speaking, a familiar voice flowed from the meeting room's speakers. Seo-yeon returned to her desk and immediately started working. As team leader Park expected, she contacted the Silvano workshop. As expected, their response was lukewarm. Orders are too backed up. The artisan's health isn't good. They made all sorts of excuses, delaying the sample shipment indefinitely. Well, this is a golden opportunity to attack CEO Kang Tae-o's judgment. We must use this fact to create an image of CEO Kang Tae-o as an incompetent manager who cannot distinguish between public and private matters. But Seo-yeon didn't waste time wrangling with them. She had been looking for another way from the moment team leader Park assigned her this task. She mobilized all her knowledge and connections accumulated during her years as a designer. Her mind held a list of countless fabric suppliers and artisans, both domestic and international. It was the recording of the conversation between Executive Director Kim Sung-cheol and team leader Park Ji-min in the room salon a few days ago. Kang Tae-o had already identified Executive Director Kim's suspicious movements and had been secretly tailing him. Silvano's silk is certainly top grade, but it's not without alternatives. The problem is its unique luster and texture. When the recording ended, the meeting room was engulfed in complete shock and horror. Executive Director Kim Sung-cheol's face turned ashen. She stayed up all night sifting through materials, even contacting her former university professor for advice. And finally, she found a small workshop on the outskirts of Gyeonggi Province. It was run by an elderly artisan who wove silk using traditional methods. Although it was on the verge of disappearing due to modern technology, its technical skill was known to be world-class. Lies that's fabricated. The next day, Seo-yeon took a day off. Team leader. Park scoffed, thinking she had buckled under pressure and run away. But Seo-yeon was heading to the small workshop in Gyeonggi Province at that very time. He screamed like a madman, but no one believed him. Kang Tae-o threw the final piece of evidence onto the table. It was a financial transaction statement proving that the source of the funds Park Ji-min used to bribe the private investigation agency and reporter was Executive Director Kim Sung-cheol's nominee account. What brings you to such a humble place? Everything was over. The white-haired artisan was initially wary, but when Seo-yeon presented her hand-drawn design sketches and expressed her deep understanding and respect for the fabric, his eyes began to change. Seo-yeon sat face-to-face with the artisan for half a day, passionately explaining the characteristics of the fabric she wanted and the philosophy of the urban dream concept. Her sincerity eventually moved the stubborn artisan. Executive Director Kim Sung-cheol and team leader Park Ji-min, both of you are immediately relieved of all positions for charges of breach of trust, embezzlement, defamation, and spreading false information against the company. I will instruct the legal team to file a lawsuit. Security team, hand them over to the police immediately. I never thought a young person like you would still be interested in such traditional skills. All right, I'll give it a try. I'll make something even better than those Italian bastards from Silvano or whatever." As soon as Kang Taeo's declaration ended, the meeting room door opened, and security guards entered, escorting the two stunned individuals out. Watching their miserable retreating figures, the directors remained silent for a long time. On the bus ride back to Seoul, Seo-yeon felt her heart swelling. This meant more than just escaping team leader Park's trap. It was a process of preserving their disappearing technology and realizing her design philosophy. After everything was settled, Kang Tae-oh bowed to the directors. Upon returning to the office, Seo-yeon proceeded with two tasks simultaneously. On one hand, she continued to politely inquire about the progress to the Silvano workshop via email, leaving a complete record. On the other hand, she communicated closely with the artisan at the domestic workshop, encouraging sample production. "I sincerely apologize as CEO for the great confusion caused to the company by this incident. However, I promise that, using this incident as an opportunity, I will create a clean and strong the aura where talented employees are not unjustly suppressed and vile conspiracies cannot take root." Finally, the day of reckoning arrived. An urgent meeting was called to report on the fabric procurement status. It was an important gathering, attended by the heads of the marketing and production teams. Team leader Park began the meeting with a triumphant expression. At his sincere promise, the directors gave a thunderous applause. The long, arduous battle had finally concluded with the triumph of justice. "All right, Assistant Manager Lee Seo-yeon, please report on the progress of the Silvano fabric sample. Everyone is waiting." Kang Tae-oh and Seo-yeon looked at each other. Seo-yeon's eyes held tears of gratitude, and Kang Tae-oh's eyes held a warm smile of trust. They silently shared the meaning of this moment, which they had overcome together. Her voice was full of scorn. She was convinced Seo-yeon would confess failure and bow her head. After the emergency board meeting, the dark storm that had enveloped the aura receded as if by magic. The power of truth was stronger than expected. Kang Tae-oh held a press conference immediately after the board meeting, revealing all the evidence. As executive director Kim Sung-cheol and team leader Park Ji-min's sordid conspiracy was exposed to the world, public opinion swiftly turned. Seo-yeon calmly rose from her seat. She first displayed the email exchanges with the Silvano workshop on the screen. The merciless criticism directed at Lee Seo-yeon transformed into sympathy and support, and the aura's stock price soared even higher than before. Kang Tae-oh's leadership, which had directly confronted the crisis and decisively purged internal enemies, was re-evaluated, and consumers cheered his resolve and the authenticity upheld by designer Lee Seo-yeon. Reporting. Currently, the Italian Silvano workshop has indefinitely postponed the shipment of samples due to internal circumstances. This is their official response. Kim Sung-cheol and Park Ji-min could not escape the judgment of the law. They were arrested on multiple charges, including breach of trust, embezzlement, and defamation, losing everything they had built over the years in an instant. Their downfall clearly showed the miserable end of those who abused power and tried to trample on others' lives. A murmur ran through the meeting room. The production team leader's face hardened. Team leader Park inwardly rejoiced, putting on a sorrowful expression like smoke. After everything fell into place, a new wind began to blow through the company. Kang Tae-oh carried out a major organizational restructuring as promised, and at its center was Lee Seo-yeon. How could this be? Assistant Manager Lee, how could you mess up something so important? I implored you repeatedly. How will you take responsibility for this project now? As of today, a new department will be established under the design headquarters. It was the very moment team leader Park was pressing Seo-yeon, intending to demand her dismissal. In the auditorium where all employees were gathered, Kang Tae-oh's voice echoed powerfully. However, the department's name is Atelier Dream. It will move away from commercial design, research creative and experimental designs, and support hidden domestic technologies and artisans, like those discovered by Assistant Manager Lee Seo-yeon. And as the head of this important department, Assistant Manager Lee Seo-yeon is promoted to director. Seo-yeon's firm voice silenced all noise in the meeting room. Thunderous applause erupted in the auditorium. Seo-yeon looked at the stage with an incredulous expression. Her colleagues patted her back with sincere smiles. There were no longer any jealous or contemptuous glances towards her. Only respect and recognition filled the air. I anticipated the instability of the overseas supply chain and prepared an alternative plan in case of any unforeseen circumstances. Seo-yeon, with trembling steps, ascended the stage. Standing before the microphone, she took a moment to compose herself. Her gaze met Kang Tae-oh's, who stood watching her from a corner of the auditorium. His eyes were warm, as if saying, "You can do it." She took out two luxuriously silk-wrapped boxes from her bag and placed them on the table. The moment the boxes opened, exclamations of awe erupted from everyone in the meeting room. "Thank you, now, for giving me such a great opportunity." Seo-yeon's voice trembled slightly, but soon firmed up. "Through Atelier Dream, I will create the Aura, not just as a company that sells clothes, but one that sells dreams and stories. I will bring hope to junior colleagues with talent but no opportunity, and new life to our precious, forgotten values. Please watch." Inside the boxes was a silk fabric with a subtle, noble luster, as if it held moonlight. One was the color of a deep, blue night sky, and the other a pale gray resembling the dawn mist. Its texture and color were incomparably elegant and unique, far surpassing that of Silvano. Her heartfelt aspirations were met with another round of enthusiastic applause from the employees. The single mom designer, who had endured alone in a gray world, was now reborn as a leader responsible for the dreams of many. This is top-grade silk woven by a domestic artisan using traditional methods. The quality, as you can see, is world-class, and the price is 30% cheaper than Silvano. Furthermore, a formal contract has already been concluded, and we have received assurance that the entire quantity will be delivered within 10 days, not 2 weeks. Time flowed, seasons changed. On a bright autumn weekend, the sounds of laughter of 4 people echoed in a quiet arboretum in the Seoul suburbs. Seo-yeon neatly laid down copies of the contract and quality assurance certificates on the table. The meeting room was in complete shock. Not only had she averted a crisis, but she had elevated the project's prestige to another level under even better conditions. "Minjun, this way I found a secret spot. Hayun, let's go together. The leaves are so pretty." Team leader. Park's face turned from pale to blue. She trembled, her lips quivering as she looked back and forth between the fabric and Seo-yeon, unable to believe what she was seeing. Min-jun and Ha-yoon had become the best of friends. The children held hands tightly, cheerfully running along a path covered with colorful autumn leaves. But Seo-yeon's counterattack didn't end there. She displayed one more document on the screen. It was a timeline summarizing the call records and email reception times with the Silvano workshop. From a slightly distanced bench, 2 people watched them with fond smiles. It was Kang Tae-oh and Lee Seo-yeon. There is one questionable point. The timings when Silvano informed us of production delays coincidentally align with the times team leader Park Ji-min had personal phone calls with them. Of course, it could just be a coincidence. After the scandal ended, their relationship changed slowly and cautiously. Kang Tae-oh no longer contacted her under the pretext of his son. He began to approach Lee Seo-yeon as a man to a woman. The suggestion to go to the park together on the weekend was also his consideration. Wanting the 2 children to meet naturally, she spoke calmly. But the impact of those words was enormous. Although there was no direct evidence, all circumstances pointed to team leader Park's obstruction. The cold stares of the executives simultaneously turned towards team leader Park. "The children really like it," Seo-yeon said, handing him a tumbler with warm coffee. Her face no longer bore the shadows of the past. It was the face of an ordinary but happy mother who loved her work and raised her daughter. "I believe my given mission was to succeed in the project despite any obstacles. This concludes my report." Indeed, Kang Tae-oh took the coffee. The moment his fingers brushed hers, a subtle electric current passed between them. "It's been a long time since I've seen Minjun smile so brightly. It's all thanks to Ms. Lee Seo-yeon." Seo-yeon bowed and sat down. It was a complete victory. "No, it's because you've become a good father. CEO." Seo-yeon replied gently. "And, can I call you Tae-oh now?" Meanwhile, a cold smile touched the lips of Kang Tae-oh, who had been watching all of this unfold in real time on his office monitor. He was deeply impressed by the fact that Lee Seo-yeon was much stronger and wiser than he had thought. She was not merely a weak victim of bullying. She was a strategist who knew how to quietly bide her time, and a true professional who turned crises into opportunities with her skills. At her sudden suggestion, Kang Tae-oh's eyes widened in surprise for a moment. Soon, a gentle smile spread across his lips. "Of course. Then may I—" Call you Seo-yeon. He nodded in satisfaction. The stage was set. The first counterattack was successful. Now, it was his turn to step forward himself. The two looked at each other and smiled. It was the moment the invisible wall separating CEO and assistant manager crumbled between them. After the fabric report meeting, the atmosphere in Design Team 1 completely reversed. Lee Seo-yeon's perfect counterattack overturned all previous assessments of her. Colleagues no longer ignored or scorned her. Their gazes held surprise, awe, and even a hint of fear. On the other hand, team leader Park Ji-min, humiliated in the meeting room, could only glare at Seo-yeon like a venomous snake, unable to say a word. The first crack had appeared in her power. Mom, Dad, come quickly. There's a squirrel. Seo-yeon tried to act nonchalant and focus on her work, but her heart was still pounding. Anxiety about the impending aftermath outweighed the sense of satisfaction. Then, the desk intercom rang sharply. At the children's shouts, the two laughed and stood up. Kang Tae-oh naturally took Seo-yeon's hand. Seo-yeon was momentarily surprised but then returned his grip. Their hands intertwined warmly, as if they had always been one. Assistant Manager Lee Seo-yeon, please come up to the CEO's office. The four stood under a maple tree. Kang Tae-oh gave Minjun a piggyback ride, and Seo-yeon held Ha-yoon in her arms. The children giggled, looking at the world from a higher vantage point. Against that backdrop, autumn sunlight poured down like golden dust. It was Secretary Kim's calm voice. All eyes in the office turned to her once again. It was time. Seo-yeon swallowed hard and stood up. Her fate was about to be decided. It was a perfect picture. The door to the CEO's office felt much heavier than before. Seo-yeon took a deep breath and stepped inside. Kang Tae-oh stood before the glass window, looking down at the city. Even though he knew Seo-yeon had entered, he remained silent for a while. The silence constricted Seo-yeon's heart. No one knew what their future would hold. They didn't rush to promise marriage or swear eternal love, but that didn't matter. Finally, he turned around. There was no longer the ruthless coldness or anger on his face as before. Instead, complex, unreadable emotions were etched there. Two wounded souls comforted each other, and two lonely children became friends. In this way, the four of them, overcoming the world's prejudices and trials, were slowly becoming a very special and precious family. Sit! The small seed of hope that bloomed in the gray of the cold city was now preparing to blossom into a beautiful flower under the warm sunlight. It was a dazzling new beginning, found at the end of a long, dark tunnel, he said curtly, pointing to the sofa. Seo-yeon meekly sat on the edge of the sofa. Kang Tae-oh sat opposite her. A heavy tension flowed between the two. Today's meeting was impressive. Kang Tae-oh spoke first. His voice was low and calm. I didn't expect an employee of merely assistant manager rank to show such crisis management ability and drive. Not only did you directly find and persuade a domestic artisan and secure alternative fabric, but you also negotiated even better terms. I can't help but commend you. It was praise, but Seo-yeon couldn't relax. You flatter me. I merely did my assigned job.